I know I've been missing in action, but it's only because I've been training for 2 weeks for a job, and plus Ramadan started, and I want to wish you guys a very, very happy Ramadan, Ramadan Mubarak, and Ramadan Kareem. I started wearing hijab exactly 3 years ago to this date, and I want to tell you my story about why and how I started hijab. People that met me before would probably never recognize me now being as a hijabi, because what they remember me as was the girl that wore like close to sleeveless shirts. You know, prayer wasn't like my priority, or you know, thinking about Islam and religion wasn't a priority. But now I've changed my ways, alhamdulillah, and it's been 3 years and it has not been easy. I've had like tons of struggles. I wasn't considering to wear hijab when I moved for university. If you ask one of my friends, the first day of university when I moved there, I was basically wearing this like close to sleeveless polka dot dress with my hair flying and my Dolce & Gabbana glasses, and I'm walking in my high heels, and I mean that was like most important thing in my life at that point. You know, my hair had to be done nicely, so that's how I lived. I always had to have my hair done. So going from that extreme to going to wearing hijab was like day to night. You just kind of have lived your entire life without wearing hijab, and what defines you is your hair. What defines your personality, your features, is your hair. And at that time I was just kind of like, man, I could really decide my new life. I could be like clubberish, or I could go towards the masjid. I don't know how, but one thing led to another, and I found myself at the masjid the first day I moved in, because I was getting so bored, and they were having a help new students move in and move out day, and I'd already moved in. When I went to this university, the hometown that I came from, like, youth did not pray unless they were being watched like a hawk from their parents. So when I got to this university, I saw guys and girls, sisters and brothers, praying every 15 minutes between classes. Like if someone was coming, then a new jamaat like would come together and they would pray together. And to me it was like, oh my god, they're really praying. Like their parents aren't here. Like I was like looking out, I was like, where are their parents? Are they watching from somewhere? Anyhow, so the first couple of times people were like, oh, why don't you join us to pray? And I just like, you know, I gave my excuses. Oh, I don't have a hijab. Oh, I don't have a hijab. I feel like the outcast. So that was one of the things, that like hijab was kind of cool over there. All the sisters were wearing it. It was like a network system. Everyone was like buddy-buddy. You know, and I kind of surrounded myself with that kind of environment. You know, I could have gone to the environment where everybody was like dancing, clubbing, but that would have required me to change myself a little more in that direction, whereas this was telling me to change myself in a direction which is more beneficial to me. So from there, that was one of the first things I was like, man, I gotta really like change myself. I was one of those girls that was just kind of like, I had 3 reasons why I would not wear hijab. I wasn't wearing hijab because I didn't want to get stopped at a market and someone asked me like, why do you wear hijab, and for me to not know why I'm not wearing hijab. You know? Secondly, I didn't want to start hijab and then take it off and be like, man, I took it off. This is an excuse, is at the end of the day, is what it is. Like, whether you wear it, whether you take it off, like, it's better to have worn it than to never have worn it at all. You know? My third reason why I didn't want to wear it was because I'm, like, modest in my own way. Like, I don't have to wear hijab to be modest. But see, that also gets contradicted by the fact that hijab is a commandment. It's just not about modesty. It's a commandment. Like, how far are you going to go and, you know, defy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandments, right? So those were my three reasons. So I started joining the tafsir classes, which translated the Quran with this imam that was really young, and really we could all relate to him. So we just kind of talked about all the stories, the backstories of the Quran, and I really started getting interested in my own faith, my own religion, and I wanted to know more about it. I'm thinking about hijab a lot more at this point. You know, I'm like, man, I should really consider it. So at this point, I call my mom and I'm like, hey mom, what's going on? And she's like, you know, your grandfather was such a good person, but you know, it's crazy to think that he passed away about 25-30 years ago, and after being such a great guy, he didn't pray. And she was like, just because he was a good guy, I'm just so afraid for him that all the mandatory things that he needed to do, he didn't do them. Will he make it to heaven? And that just kind of clicked in my head, because it was like, man, I'm thinking about the same thing. I'm a good person. I'm modest on my own, you know, terms and all that stuff. But will this get me to heaven? Like, am I completing my fard? And so I asked my mom. I was like, Mom, listen, if I consider to wear hijab, like, what are the reasons why I shouldn't wear hijab? And my mom was she was pretty supportive, because she never like forced me to wear hijab or anything like that, and neither did my dad. So she's like, oh, because you love your hair and you're afraid that guys won't like you anymore, or gosh, what was the other thing she said? And you love wearing earrings. And so I was like, yeah, you're right, Mom, you know, I don't know about hijab anymore. And she was like, you know, why do you make your hair, and why is your hair so important to you? And I was like, because I love it. It's for me. And she was like, well, if it's for you, then you are going to see your hair whether you wear hijab or not. Like, when you wear hijab and you come home, you'll still get to see your hair. You're not hiding it from yourself. And I was like, wow, didn't think of that one. Duh. So she totally like helped me out with that part. I would go to that masjid, which is, and I was talking about where this all started, and this is when I really started considering hijab. You know, a lot of reasons just kind of like were bothering me. Something every day was just kind of gnawing at me, and I was like, man, what if I die tomorrow, like, and I didn't wear hijab, like, what am I gonna do, you know? And I didn't pray before all 5. So I was just kind of like, I really want to start praying, and I'm not praying, and I can't wear hijab if I don't pray 5 times a day. Are you kidding me? And in reality, like, my hijab encouraged me, motivated me, and made sure that I prayed 5 times a day instead of it being the other way around. So you don't have to wear hijab in order to pray, and you don't have to pray in order to wear hijab. Like, those things are totally different, you know what I mean? You know, this masjid that I was really in love with, I went there, and a few times that I went there when I started considering hijab, at least 2 or 3 times, I just kind of felt this like feeling of every time I wear hijab to you know, pray, I just kind of want to never take it off. And so that happened the first or second time. The third time I was at a barbecue, and I prayed Asr, and like I got done with my roommate, and I was just kind of like, dude, did you hear that? And she was like, what? And I was like, someone whispered in my ear not to take my hijab off. And she was like, no, I didn't hear that. And I was like, weird, you know? And so I was like, wow, that's really creepy. Maybe it's just my conscience. Like, I don't know. It was like something was really like eating me up inside. Well, Ramadan comes around, and I'm like, man, I'm really considering hijab at this point. Like, it's like 75%. And so I'm doing istikhara, I'm thinking about it, and at some point I'm like, oh, subhanahu wa ta'ala, please, just, I'm not the type of person that, if there's something that I really kind of don't want to do, like if you give me this like sign that's really not a sign, then I'll probably like excuse it and try to stay with what I want to hear. Basically, I love to hear what I want to hear, so give me a sign that's like deadbolt, you know? So when I went to sleep thinking about hijab, like I really did, and the next morning I woke up. So during a Ramadan, like I know most of you don't even listen to music, but I managed to listen to Sami Yusuf, and I love Sami Yusuf, first of all, but I loved his track 1 and track 9, and 3 years back I didn't listen to anything else except track 1 and track 9. Track 9 is like my ummah, and I never heard any of his other songs on my CD. Like there was like 12 tracks, never heard him. I was like, whatever. Actually, track 9 used to be on repeat, you know, and I used to turn off my CD player whenever I'd get out of the car, and so I get into the car in the morning to get to university. I sit in my car and the CD player is already turned on, which is really weird because I usually turn it off. It's on a different track. It's like on track 12, I think, which I never let it to get to track 12. And the track hasn't started yet. So it's playing, it's about to start. I'm sitting in, putting my belt in, clicking it, and like it's about to play, which is weird because usually when you turn off your car and turn it back on, it's like your music starts from the middle, you know, like it's already playing and you're just kind of catching up with the song. Believe it or not, the song is about hijab. Like, hijab is not oppressive, hijab is what makes me, Allah's commandment is what hijab is, and believe me, at that point, I just kind of sat back. I was like, whoa, that is creepy, you know, like, that's really scary. And I think that did it for me. Like, I just needed like a real go sign. And that same day, I started hijab. I put it on Facebook. Everyone was like, oh my god, so cool, how could this happen, the guys that liked the Sobia with hair were like totally heartbroken. And this is not something like I'm bragging about or anything like that, but I'm showing you, like, almost instantly, like, the moment I wore hijab, they were just kind of like, what? And then I met people like my husband, who I ended up marrying, only one person. Yeah. That loved me for my hijab. So guys definitely started changing their way that they were around me. Before, guys used to stand like, I could feel their breath on my, my face or my neck. Now at this point, guys were like few feet, far away from me, and then they'd look down, they'd have more respect. If I had anything to say about, religion or anything like that, they took me more seriously, definitely. Like, before, they didn't even take me seriously. And so things really changed for me, but what I want to really mention in this entire story is that I am not someone that grew up with, like, covering. Like, for me to even wear a shawl to cover my chest was like completely absurd theory. Like, so if you're one of those girls that are just kind of like, this is out of the question, these girls are like, were born with hijab, I'm not that type of person. Believe me, everyone has their own story. They've been through their, rough share or rough struggles and all that stuff. People give each other a hard time about how they're not doing hijab properly. It's frankly because when you start pretty late, or when you start even earlier, you have lows and highs, and you're allowed to go through those. Honestly, if you didn't have a spiritual low, then you would not hit that spiritual high. Around my wedding time 6 months ago, I just wanted to take my hijab off. Like, I was like, I don't want it. But I hit such a low, and the support from my husband and the mom's, guidance, I definitely picked it right back up. And alhamdulillah, never been so in love with my hijab. Like, struggles are part of it. You will hit lows, and when people, like, call each other out, sisters calling each other out, guys questioning you, they need to realize that sometimes hijabis are brand new hijabis. It takes them years to change their closet. For me, I'm still changing my closet. It has been 3 years, and before, I tried to fit into everything that I was wearing then. My small shirts, I just try to triple, quadruple layer it, and it's been a while since then, and I have learned lessons the hard way. And I hope through that, through my videos, a lot of you sisters who are starting or already have been there but just kind of are struggling, I really hope that my things that I've learned through my obstacles and struggles, you guys can relate to it too. Hijab has really changed my life. It's made me happier. I'm more content. I basically had this checklist, in this like mental checklist, and on the checklist there was a good one and a bad one, and on my bad one I was like going through it. I had done everything. On the good one, not so much. And when I wore hijab, it was like the first time I was like, man, check. I just did something right, The reason why I do it is because I feel like hijab has turned into this, like, nerd of the society. Like, being hijabi is just so uncool. And I want to make sure that you have role models, or even girls, that make it seem like the hijab is a cool thing to do. Like, hijabis aren't weird. They're not like the social outcast. They're like normal. They know fashion. They know what D&G is, what Prada is. They wear it. They know how to match. Wearing a hijab is a challenge. My mom always said, which has kind of brought me through it, she's like, suck it up, and she's like, act like hijab's your hair. You just cannot do without it. You will not change it for somebody else. And that's really helped me through everything. And I hope that sisters will write about their experiences down below, the tips that have helped them, how they've kind of gone through their struggles when they started, how they started, what are their struggles. Also, I'd like to know, what are the hijab tutorials you girls need? I know Eid's approaching. I need to do a Pakistani dupatta hijab tutorial ASAP. So just kind of holla at me down below, and I'll be waiting, and let me know what else you guys want to recommend. Oh, before I leave, I am wearing a, like, honestly, this looks like one of those Frank pencils, with the safari and all, but it's leopard with 3 different colors. This is a purple shirt that I'm wearing. It's a ruffle long shirt. I'm wearing an undershirt in this. I've got my bracelet, my little bracelets, and my rings, and I don't know if you can tell, this is my purple eyeshadow, and that's about it. That's a wrap. Assalamu alaikum.